continuation, and we left at weather destination.js. Let me put these back in the same area, and let's move on. So if we have our geocode, what it does is it takes in any information that we have passed into it as a string and gives us back the latitude and longitude along with a whole bunch of other information. So this is the callback function after we execute this query. From here, we stringify the data to display all this information. And from there, we're actually accessing a whole bunch of different information from there. We do some if-else statements to determine, if it's a postal code, then we save the postal code into a variable. If it's a locality, we save the locality into a variable called city. So depending on what information we get back, we then store it into either a zip code or city. Now, if zip code exists, then what we're going to do is set a variable called search to equal the zip code. And if it does not exist, then we're going to use the city. So zip code, assumably, in this case, is better than city. Now, the next part is actually pretty important. So there's a lot of stuff going on over here, and we've covered it. I don't want to really review too much of that just because it would take a really long time. But essentially what's happening is there's a large asynchronous call being made by geocoder.geocode. And notice that in this same asynchronous call, we have another asynchronous call being made. Now, why do I have to call this other weather.find, which is another asynchronous call, and use this information from this geocode call? Why do I have to call it within this same asynchronous call? Why do I have to call this weather.find inside geocoder.geocode?
Not the value would be null or undefined because it didn't establish that what the variable is yet.
Exactly. Yeah, you need to input. Well, yeah, and Jared mentioned a simpler explanation. So you need the input value from the earlier call, right? So you guys are basically saying the same thing. You need this information, right? And if you ran this synchronously after this, what would happen is this search would actually be returned as undefined, right? It wouldn't be sequential, right? So you want this to be, okay, this is executing, then this is executing, then this is executing. Oh, okay, then we have the search. So in this asynchronous callback, we have some sequentiality, right? So from here, we say, okay, search is equal to search, degree type is equal to Fahrenheit. Now we're going to do another callback function. And in here, we're going to say, if there's an error, say, sorry, we don't have enough data on that location, and then return. Otherwise, we're going to display all the information from that weather. So let's do some example inputs. So let's just put times square. So we can pass it this information. Oop, I'm not spelling Node right. And we get back all this information, right? So we get back Manhattan, New York, all this other stuff, anything that we want out of it. Another thing that says is, sorry, we don't have enough data on that location. So the first part returns and the second part does not. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, let's see, let's put in, oh, yeah, so that was supposed to work and apparently it didn't. Let's try that again. It was just on a hang up. Times square, yeah. So what happened was the information just, I guess, just didn't get sent through. So this actually does work. And what happens is it returns information with the weather forecast. Manhattan, New York, 54 degrees, mostly clear, and then low of 46 degrees and high of 58. Sorry, just give me 1 second. No worries. Yeah. So all right, so finally we want to go into package.json, right? So package.json is a way for us to manage our npm packages and our directories as well. So if you have this package.json file, then assumably someone either created it for you or you created it using a command called npm init. And notice that it's just basically a simple JSON object, and it contains different information inside of this JSON object. So you have name is equal to a string called weatherdest, version is 1.00, description is this application will gather weather data, and for any landmark or location, the main file is server.js, scripts, blah, 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 etc., etc. Really, the only thing we really give a shit about right now is these dependencies. All right, so these dependencies are what we want. Notice that there's two things that we're using in this application that are inside this package.json. The geocoder application, or the module, and the weather.js module, each with a version number along with the minor version and the patch number. All right, so what does it do? So why don't we get rid of our node modules? So we did rm.rf node modules, and now it doesn't exist, right? Now, for me, this is still going to work if I execute weather.destination.js because, again, the way that Node works is it's actually going to look for node packages that exist in a node modules folder in the parent directories going as high as possible. Now, I showed you guys my node modules folder existing in a directory. Why don't I show you guys something that should not work? Emphasis is on should. So let's go to 04. We'll go to activities solved. Nope. Let me go into 05. And now I'm in the same kind of place, but this has no parent directory with a node modules folder. So this is what Juan was asking about. So if we go into, we already got into this directory, so we do pwd. So we're inside 05 package.json. And if I do ls and I do rm, again, this is a very dangerous command. Only do it if you know what you're doing. Remove that directory. And now if I type in node weather dest and I type in times